Water. Earth. Fire. Air.
So, Top thinks you give pretty good advice. And great tea.
The key to both is proper aging.
Welcome to No Occasion, The Shout. I am your host, Austin Mulca, alongside with Master of Physics and the Philosophy of Science and politician, author, Robin Kerner. How are you doing, Robin?
I'm all right, mate. Thank you for that unusual introduction, an extremely generous one. Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing really well. We had the first You Decide, and you all voted on it. And can I share my screen?
Whoa.
All right.
Look at that. That's cool.
All right. So these are the results of the
Hey.
You Decide. And as you see, the
I love
character
the scale.
analysis
I love
with
the
Uncle Iroh had 4 million votes. And as you can see with the asterisk, the numbers are expressed in millionths. So you would want to divide the number by 1 million. And or in Robin's terms, what would you do? 10 times 10 to the negative 6? Is that how
You could
how you do
multiply it. You
numbers?
could multiply it by 10 to the negative 6. That would give you the same thing. Yeah, that's good.
Is there a reason for that, or is it just pretentious? Or it's
No,
math?
there's a definite reason for that. When you're
Okay.
doing physics, you're dealing with numbers with, huge, like 23rd, 24th decimal, or
Okay.
23, 24 digits long, because you've got 23 zeros after, whatever the non-zero digit is, right? So it's just because the numbers are so big or so small that you couldn't. If you're going to be consistent.
You couldn't write all the numbers. So that is a lot quicker. You're right.
Yeah.
So what I meant was with 1 million, though, specifically. That was my question. But 10 to the negative 6. Okay.
10 to the negative 6, yeah.
So then character analysis of Uncle Iroh 1. So we'll be doing that. And I brought my buddy alongside me, who is a character from Avatar, Appa. My girlfriend actually made this for me for Christmas.
So hold on, let me ask you. That's very
So
cool.
this is a flying bison.
I don't
This
know.
is from
Go on. Go ahead. A flying bison. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's one of the characters in the TV show that I will be introducing to you.
Okay, so I was going to say I don't know what Avatar is. So you just told me it's a TV show.
It is a TV show. I will explain that all to you.
All right, sounds good.
All right, so Avatar: The Last Airbender is based on 4 different tribes: water, fire, earth, air. Essentially, the Fire Nation attacked, and the Avatar is master of all 4 of the elements, and he brings balance to the elements. But one of the characters is a firebender named Iroh, who is a brother of what they call the Fire Lord. So the Fire Lord would be the highest in the Fire Nation, and he's the one that started the war, or his ancestors started the war like a president. But he's a very interesting character, and he has a lot of interesting quotes. I believe I did 8 quotes because it totaled to 10 on the PowerPoint.
Okay, all right, okay.
All right, so the first quote: "It is more important to draw wisdom from many different places. If we take it from only one place, it becomes rigid and stable. Understanding others, the other elements, and the other nations will help you become whole." This is very interesting because, again, he's a member of the Fire Nation. He's on the bad side. There aren't very many firebenders that are actually on the good side. Nobody likes firebenders, no matter who you are. And he actually learned, one of the reasons he is one of the most powerful characters in the show is because he studied the other elements and incorporated their styles into his. And by studying waterbending, he actually was the first person to learn how to redirect lightning, which is a tactic that very few of the strongest firebenders can use. They can shoot lightning. And he learned to redirect the lightning using waterbending as a firebender. So Iroh, in
That's
a sense,
cool.
is kind of like
isn't it? It's kind
Yeah.
of, yeah, I like it. You know, water as a conductor and
Yeah.
so on. Yeah. I'm kind of, yeah, go ahead. It's cool. Go ahead.
And so in that sense, he's a very libertarian-esque character, I believe. Any thoughts on this quote?
Yeah. Interesting that you say a libertarian-esque character, because everything that you've said so far is about his epistemological approach, right? His engagement with knowledge. My biggest problem with any of the isms is that they can, including libertarianism, is that they can be made into a religion. And as you know from the writing that I've done, you know, I think there is such a thing as a libertarian orthodoxy, just as there's a socialist orthodoxy, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't think, although I agree that libertarianism, which holds as an extremely high, perhaps the highest value, liberty, should be favorable to liberty of thought, right? Freedom of thought, and indeed that's why freedom of speech is such a value, because it facilitates freedom of thought. In my experience, libertarians are, being as human as everybody else, not that much more inclined to be epistemically, or to be completely technically correct, doxastically open, any more than, you know, other folks. But so I'm not sure that what you've told me about this guy and this quote suggests per se that he's more libertarian, but obviously I don't know the show, and he may be a libertarian character, but I wouldn't say I wouldn't buy it just because of this. But
i.e. only true libertarians believe, or if you're a libertarian, you have to believe.
Yeah, you have to believe XYZ, and if you don't believe XYZ, then you're obviously not one, and you're blah blah. I mean, you've seen all the Facebook, you know, flame wars. You've been there. You've seen it. Let
me rephrase then. He thinks in a similar way as you do and I do, and other people who identify as classical liberals.
Well, you know what? I think there are people who don't identify as classical liberals at all, but who are open-minded, who are people who I fundamentally, intellectually am drawn to. But I know why you say that, and I'm sympathetic to what you just said. When you gave me this quote, and this goes to your point directly, the first thing I thought of was John Stuart Mill, and one of my favorite quotes of all, which is, "He who knows only his own side of the case knows little of that."
Yes.
And this sounds like he's this firebender guy, right? That's right. Sounds like he's J.S. Mill inspired, as am I. So yeah. And
well, actually, this took place a long time ago in the show, so it would mean John Stuart Mill was actually inspired. No.
Well, I'm figuring they're in other worlds, right? Yeah, but that's true, you know, and I think there's almost kind of a banal point, but it's a point that we forget, that anything that's so, your understanding of the truth necessarily can only be served by engaging that thing that is so, because it's so. You know, so even if what is so may be a person behaving badly based on bad views, there is truth to be gained from the engagement, because you might understand why that person holds those views. You know, what is it about the human mind that would cause those views to be favored by people, you know, certain people and not others, etc., etc. There's always more to be found out if you look at more stuff, look at more things, keep an open mind.
So so in other words, he's a character that is unaffected by tribalism, because that's really what the Four Nations are, is tribalism.
Or we might say that he may be less affected by tribalism than others by being aware of his own tribalism, right? I mean, because I think like I can work at being epistemically open or whatever, at keeping an open mind, but I can't pretend to not be formed by where I come from, what I believe, the experiences I've had, and therefore, you know, to have certain biases, certain prejudices, certain interests that would cause me to know more about this over here than that over there. So, and I'm as I get older, I believe more and more in, dare I say, this is probably a show in itself, sentiment and sentimental attachment and the value of it.
Yeah.
And and that obviously is very much, sentiment usually is about an attachment to a thing or a place or a group or whatever it might be. And I don't, there's no logical contradiction between seeing the value in that, seeing the truth about human nature that sentimentality derives from, while saying that it is massively important to never stop where you are,
Can you turn your microphone down just a tad? Are you able to do that?
I don't think I can, but what I could do is talk more quietly.
Hold on. I'm going to turn my volume down a little bit.
Okay.
All right. Okay. And oh, look at that. Good transition to the next quote. Accidental click. Is this slide four? Yeah, we're on slide 4. So the next quote. You must never give in to despair. Allow yourself to slip down that road and you surrender to your lowest instincts. In the darkest times, hope is something you give yourself. That is the meaning of inner strength.
Yeah, this is a statement about faith, or it could be seen to be one. I wonder how many people have actually had a time in their life where they've wondered why they shouldn't end it. There have been 2 times in my life where I was literally asking that question. And one, because I was somewhat, I was in a very dark place in my life. But the first was purely an intellectual engagement with the question. It was I was kind of in the midst of a Cartesian project, right, of skepticism, and I figured I at least need a reason to keep, to be here rather than not be here, and I mean, I guess some would say that's the ultimate existential question, right?
Yes.
And
there's a quote that will help you with that later on. So in particular, this quote, he has a nephew named Zuko. And Iroh's son died in the war. And after his son died, that's kind of what caused him to be more of the person that we see in the show. And the creators actually decided not to do a backstory episode on Iroh, and I think that's pretty significant because we know that Iroh was basically just like every other firebender before the death. So if they showed a backstory episode, I think they just didn't want people's minds to remember Iroh like that. I think they specifically really liked how his character was, and they didn't want to taint it. That would be my guess as to why they didn't air the episode and decided to not do the backstory episode. But Zuko was the reason why he went to jail, Iroh. So Iroh is in jail because of Zuko, who he has said is, after the death of his son, Zuko is like his son. And he's been trying to guide Zuko the entire time. And Zuko basically goes back and forth between good decisions, bad decisions. And a lot of it has to do with his so-called destiny, which is another quote that I didn't put on here, which a lot of people commented was one of their favorite quotes, because I asked people what's their favorite quote, and it had to do with Zuko. He says, you have to stop thinking about what other people's destiny is and think about what you want and what you want to do. But this quote comes basically from betrayal from his nephew and sitting in jail. And
let me link these first 2 quotes, because one of the places I go when I could slip into despair over something
is jail.
No, is to humility, is to intellectual humility.
Mm.
You see, the thing is, ignorance is a wonderful reason to hope. We all know so much less than we think we know. We never know what's around the corner. We never know what this, the set of events we're caught up in now is setting us up for a week, a year, a decade later. And we can't know. We can't work it out. And if I go back through my life, at the times where maybe that have been hardest for me, and I'm sure this is true from, I guess, everybody or most people, many people. If you go back to that time in your imagination, and then from that time in the past, you go forward to a time, perhaps now, when you're content, when you're happy, when things are good, you're out of your despair. Yeah, it's hard to say that the despair at that time is less justified, is less logical. It is, because, here we are again, we come out of it, we live to fight another day, it comes out good in the end. We don't know how, but we don't need to know how. All we need to do is that whatever we think we know that tells us that there's cause for despair, our knowledge is incomplete, it's generally wrong in large part. So not being able to know very much, not being able to see around the corner, in other words, our ignorance, is a cause itself not to give in to despair.
Yes.
So,
humility is a means of hope. That's a good way of looking at it.
Yeah, from humility to hope. Yeah.
And that transitions to this one. Even in the material world, you will find that if you look for the light, you can often find it. But if you look for the dark, that is all you will ever see.
What you focus on, you make bigger, or what you focus on, you make real. All reasoning and even perception, immediate perception, is motivated.
Perspective is a very, very, very big thing.
And this, I know you and I, we often mention Peterson. A lot of his work speaks directly to this. There is no raw, non-selective data collection. It was interesting. I had a profound experience of this, which definitely changed my life. I was a scientist, as you know. I was a physicist, and in my 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 years old, whatever, I was engaged in this rather brutal personal Cartesian project to not believe anything unless I could prove it to myself, right? Which is hide into nothing, by the way. But
did you believe in the Higgs boson particle?
I didn't. I don't have opinions on things that I don't need to have opinions on.
Isn't it strange, though, that it basically existed because it had to exist?
Well, that's very much. Well, now we get it. Now that's an interesting. There's a show, because what you're talking about there is beauty as guide to truth. And I told you the story about
Einstein.
Being asked about general relativity and whether. Yeah. Okay. So you know that story.
Yeah. Do the viewers know it?
I don't know. Should I repeat it?
Here?
Yeah, I can say it real quick. Okay. So many years after Einstein conceived general relativity, there was to be the first kind of precision experiment of a prediction of the theory that was going to involve an atomic clock being flown at high altitude in a jet, plane. And
a reporter asked him.
Yeah, right? Allegedly, that's right. Einstein was asked, what if the experiment proves relativity wrong? And Einstein's answer allegedly was, so much the worse for the experiment. The theory is too beautiful to be wrong. And so much of research science, fundamental science, so particle physics, that kind of thing, is a pursuit of beauty, which often manifests in looking for symmetry, looking for pattern, right? Data data may be made consistent with a theory that when you describe the theory in some way, perhaps mathematically or graphically, seems to exhibit a pattern or be represented as a pattern. And there might be a bit of the pattern that's missing, or, you know, and so, yeah. So
like particles having mass.
Right. So you can stack particles up in tables, right? And, you know, you might have all these columns of all of these rows, and then there's a gap, and you go, well, there's got to be something there because it fits, right? We've discovered this pattern that everything else fits. There's a hole in it, so something must be in the hole because it looks like there's this pattern. And
it's like dark matter, which is what they're saying is there must be gravity there, even though they can't see it.
Well, yeah, I think that's a little more mundane. I think that's dark matter broadly is posited because there are measurable effects that can only be explained if there's more matter in the universe than we can otherwise detect. And whereas I'm talking about, looking at a pattern and seeing a hole in it and saying, well, if there was something in the hole, then it's gonna have these properties based on the rest.
Yeah, that's a little bit different.
Yeah. So,
but you didn't believe in anything unless it could be proven to you.
Right. Well, that's what I was trying to do. Which, by the way, nobody can do. Like, nobody, whatever they think, actually lives believing only what they can logically justify, based on non-prejudicially acquired.
Socrates did.
No, he didn't. But the reason I was starting to go there to finish to make the point I was going to make was the point at which I gave that up in a way, or realized that if I were to try and live my life like that, I would be missing a lot of life, was when I came to America, first time as an adult, and was taught sales. When I was taught door-to-door sales, and I got 4.5 days of intensive sales training, during which I was told that I could determine outcomes by believing them, that they were going to happen, or that I could increase the chance of an outcome by visualizing the outcome.
Yes.
Which is an interesting one, right? Because if the data tell you that by making yourself believe something that isn't so, you make it more so, then it's kind of like a paradox, right? Because believing it can make it so, and that itself is the reason to believe it, right? So and it's like a kind of a bootstrapping. And
it's a placebo effect, I think, that's based on perspective and memory, and also psychology. It boosts morale.
Well, clearly there is, there are reasons why it works. But the interesting question is, given that you don't have all of the science that explains why it works, there's a sense in which you're doing it on faith, but you're not. But there's another sense in which you're not doing it on faith, because once you do it on faith, you discover that it works. That's a good reason to do it, but you don't know why it works. But yeah, there's a certain circularity about it, and I discovered that it was true, and I discovered that I could, by operating as if I was a lot more confident than I was, I could make amazing things happen. That the power of belief, could change the world. Like literally could change my experience in quite substantial ways that I would not have countenanced before I had gone knocking on 200 doors, in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and tested that out. So what sounded like, American sales psychobabble actually caused me to relate once I tried it out very differently to my life. and it turned me from a pessimist to an optimist.
Wow.
Yeah, it
That's
changed
pretty
my life
profound.
deeply. So yeah. So I can relate to this quote here in many ways.
That's actually very profound. Conor McGregor, I remember him talking about visualizing and visualization a lot as the reason for his success. Actually, I've heard a lot of people talk about that.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Lots of people do.
Pride is not the opposite of shame, but its source.
I like that.
True humility is the only antidote to shame.
Yes.
Thoughts?
Yes. Yes. What?
You were talking about this a little bit earlier.
Go
on. In regards to your having an existential crisis, and having humility, it's partially correlated.
I mean, you can only, yeah, I mean, obviously the point is, in a way it's obvious, and I'm wondering if it's worth trying to articulate, to unpack. But but it's not trivial it's not easy to unpack it, is it? But what it's saying is, if you don't have pride, then you haven't got something that you have to keep, that you've got your identity invested in, to the point that if you lose it, you have any reason to experience shame. And so what it's saying is really that the flip side of the coin. It's the shame is the negative, of which the pride is the positive, or you could say the other way, maybe. Right?
Or
there's a dependence there.
Or the way I kind of took it was, if you feel shameful, you never actually had pride in the first place.
Oh no, I think it's the opposite. I think that's interesting. I take the exact opposite meaning. I think it's saying that unless you have pride, like if you haven't got pride, if you're already humble, then how's anybody going to shame you? There's nothing anybody can say to you if you don't have pride that could cause you to feel shame, because you already knew you were ignorant. You already knew you weren't great. You already knew you were a bad person because you were humble. The pride is what makes you think you're great or smart or whatever. And by attacking that, or by showing you are wrong, right? Your basis of your pride is wrong. Then you can be made to experience shame. That's what I take that to be.
What I said, I had an assumption, and my assumption was first that true humility is pride.
What does that mean?
I guess I'm thinking of pride in a different way. I'm thinking of pride in a positive way.
Yeah, okay.
I'm thinking that if you have true humility, you have pride in a good way instead of pride in a bad way.
Pride in what?
In yourself, perhaps? Yeah,
okay. I mean, pride is used with a positive connotation, but it's a second order use. And it's interesting to me that you would go there, because I think this quote is clearly the other use of the word pride.
Yeah.
The standard use, let's say, or the negative use.
Yeah, so humility, the reason I say that is because, if pride and shame are the same thing, it's a source. So if we say pride and shame are the same thing, and humility is the antidote to shame, then if you are shameful or prideful and you have humility, it's the antidote to shame. So it gets rid of shame and you're left with humble pride, I guess. I kind of looked at it as a math equation. Antidote to shame, cross out shame on both sides.
I think...
But I see what you mean now.
Yeah. I mean, I think what he's saying is true humility is the only antidote to shame, because where there is humility, pride cannot be.
Yeah, I think that makes more sense. I think you're right. All right. Next quote. Oh, this is a good one. Failure is only the opportunity to begin again, only this time more wisely.
Yeah. Yeah, there's various versions of that, isn't it? Isn't there? Like, what is it? success isn't found in not failing, it's found in picking yourself up when you do, or not falling, and all that kind of stuff. So and there's all the entrepreneurs that, I didn't fail 10,000 times. I found, with the light bulb, I found 10,000 times didn't work, and each failure is and I was talking about my experience in sales. Each no is one closer to the yes. It's all of it. So and failure is a much better teacher than again Peterson, right? Failure is what shows you that your model is flawed, doesn't get you where you want to go. And so failure is the thing that enables you to adjust the model. And indeed, and I talked about this recently in a little tribute video I did to Stephen Hawking. I mentioned how science proceeds by looking to falsify itself, right? Science proceeds with the humility, to link to the other slide, right? Of saying, although we are, maybe closer to the truth right now than we were before, we know we don't have the truth. We know that at the margins, our theories fail. And so we're going to look to find out exactly how and why they fail. So science actually goes out to find failure to correct itself, right? And that's, the most productive intellectual endeavor, arguably, of humankind.
When you did sales, did they tell you never to give up until they said no?
That's a great, that's okay, another good show. They actually told me something that I've never quite forgotten, strange as it is. And I think it has stood the test in different contexts, which was nobody actually means no until they say no 3 times, each time for the same reason. That was what I was taught in sales.
My friend Ali, we were at actually LibertyCon, and he was bored because we were in a hotel waiting for the next conference to begin. And so someone called him, and I don't know, Ali is a very strange person sometimes. He does things that I'm like, why would you do that? I'm confused. And he's like, I don't know. But someone called him, and he's on the phone with someone. Use a marker as his phone. So he's on the phone, and this is what I hear, because I don't hear the opposite end of the conversation. This is all I hear. Hello? Yeah, do I want to get a hotel room in Chicago? I don't know. I don't really have that much money. I'm a college student. Okay. Yeah, $200. I'm still like, I don't really want to go to Chicago. Not really. Yeah. I like your hustle. Good hustle. I don't have any money. I guess I would have to talk to my friends first about that if we're going to share. Yeah. You know what? Hold on. Okay. You know what? I'm going to put you on hold and I'll be right back. And then he goes on hold and he starts texting. And he picks up the phone. He's like, yeah, I don't know what to tell you, man. None of my friends want to go to Chicago. And he's like, yeah,
crazy.
But I don't have the money is what I'm trying to tell you. Yeah, dude, I don't want to go to Chicago. I don't want to get a hotel room in Chicago. And at this point, I looked to Ali and I said, are they still talking to you? And then he says, yeah, yeah. And those yeahs, by the way, go on for at least 60 seconds. And that 60 seconds feels like an hour because I'm watching this. Yeah. And he's just like, yeah. And he's like, well, yeah, but I'm going to have to go now because I told you that I do not want to get a hotel room multiple times. Yeah, no, but I seriously, yeah, okay. Love you. Okay, bye.
That's great.
That was the conversation. And it was crazy to me because he was clearly being sarcastic, especially at the point where he was like, dude, I don't know what to tell you. I don't want to go to Chicago. I'm not going to go. Because he was just messing with them or seeing like how long they would actually stay on the phone with him. And they did until he actually forcibly hung up. And he was on the phone for probably 20 minutes.
Wow.
I'm not exaggerating.
20 minutes of his life will never get back, yeah.
Is that what you were taught?
No, that sounds horrific. No, I was taught, no, not that at all. I believe I was taught how to sell well. And I don't think a hard sale, a sale that sounds or feels like a hard sale, I don't think is generally a good sale.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
If someone says no multiple times. Next one. Sometimes the best way to solve your own problems is to help someone else.
Ah, yeah. If you want to have something, give something. That's a deep one. You know, I first encountered this idea, I think, in the books of Neil Donald Walsh, Conversations with God.
Okay.
Neil
Donald Walsh?
Neil Donald Walsh, one of the best-selling books of the 90s, or series of books of the 90s. There's probably very few men on earth right now that have sold more books than him. What does it relate? Oh, it relates to a few things. You know, what an example that comes to mind of this, and I'm not sure it's a good example. I don't think it's quite right, but it's in the ballpark. In the Neil Donald Walsh book, there was this idea of you don't give to homeless people to do something for the homeless person. You give to a homeless person to give yourself an experience of abundance. And that because the sponsoring thought of giving is that you have something to give. And by causing yourself, and this relates to an earlier quote, interesting how all these kind of relate. I
give to any, I don't know if, the way I give money is if I see someone trying and not pitying themselves. If I see someone on the corner of the street holding a cardboard box or whatever that says give me money, and they look sad and they're like down, I usually don't give them money. But if they're like playing guitar or like dancing or like doing something or singing, I usually give to those people.
Okay.
And I wouldn't say it's out of my own, I wouldn't say I benefit from it. I'm not sure I agree with that, because I don't know. Do you feel as if you're...
Why do you give?
Because I appreciate the effort that someone's putting in. And I think that they deserve...
That appreciation, though, I'm guessing, I mean, to appreciate something is necessarily to have a positive experience, right?
Sure.
And you know, that may not be, now the strength of that experience may not be much enough to solve a problem, let's say, right? Or to make any substantial change to your day. But it can be. And it can take you, it can put your focus on different things, right? See, like a lot of problems, we have a lot of problems because we're looking at something at the wrong level, not in its full context. For example, there's another great quote. Maybe this might be Anthony DeMello. I can't remember, but it might be Anthony DeMello. That most unhappiness comes from mistaking the partial for the whole, right? That there's something problematic. A lot of life is like this, and you focus on this thing. But when you put it in a bigger context of like your entire life, or maybe, you know, the entire universe, right? It's like, it's just a thing that will be dealt with and will pass. But so we sometimes, and then despair is often mistaking the partial for the whole. I know when I've been dealing with clinical depression, it's not the actual here and now, the devastation of here and now. It's the devastation of here and now with the certainty that that's never going to change. And the mistake is the certainty that it's never going to change. Now, it can be self-fulfilling, right? But in general, that's an incorrect assumption. And so if you can change the focus, if you can change what you're bodily reacting to or responding to from this to that, which you often can do by helping someone else, right? To get something, give something, right? You're stuck in your life. You don't know what to do next that's meaningful. You've got a dead-end job. You're not making enough money. You don't know actually what turns you on, and what you think you need to do is work that out. And in some point you just give up and you go and help at a homeless shelter. And it's that gives you your answer. You didn't go do it to get your answer, but there is something about giving and engaging with humanity in a way that you have to when you do give, that can jolt you, that can give you another perspective, that can reset your priorities in a way you couldn't have predicted, you couldn't have worked out. And I think that's just, I can't explain it in detail.
No, I think that's definitely true. And if I were to when I give to homeless people, for example, I gave money to someone who was playing guitar on the street. It kind of gave me hope because, in my opinion, feeling sorry for yourself and despair is the ultimate form of failure. Once that happens, you're on the path to nowhere. And a lot of people that I see that are homeless that are trying to use pity to seek attention, I think that there's a natural reaction to people on a fundamental level that they don't know or can't explain or can't articulate, where they just won't want to give money to someone who is trying to seek pity, because on another level, they know that pity is bad for them, and they know it's not going to help. And those people, I feel badly for them because I know in their heads, they're seeing all these people pass them, and they're thinking, those people don't care about me. I'm pitying myself. I'm telling them I need help, and they don't care. When they, in my opinion, they actually do care. They just know that pity is not what's going to help them. And when I see people playing guitar or dancing or like doing something, like making an effort, and I see that they're getting money, or even if they're not giving money and I give them money, it makes me happy because I think I'm hoping that other people are going to learn from this. Other people are going to learn that if you make an active effort, not only are people going to appreciate and try to help you if you do need help and you're actually trying, but you're also going to find a newfound happiness or appreciation in what you are doing for yourself in and of itself.
Yeah, and that makes me think that, part of the reasons why we have problems is because we think there's something practical that we have to do, as if but the thing that can do the most good for us is actually, they're the kind of things that are about human experience, direct human experience, right?
And on that note, donate to us at patreon.com/donate.
True that. Yeah. So by, again, by helping someone else, you get a reminder, an experiential reminder of what's really important and what actually makes you feel good, rather than the problem that you think you have to solve to be okay and feel good. It reframes the moment. So yeah, this is good stuff.
I think we have 2 more quotes.
Okay.
All right. Failure. Oh, is this?
We've done this
did
one.
we just do this one?
Yeah.
I went twice. Okay. So this is the last quote. Sometimes life is like this dark tunnel. This meaning the tunnel that they are in. You can't always see the light at the end of the tunnel, but if you just keep moving, you will come to a better place.
And what other option have you got anyway?
Yes, and I think that's
The only way out is through of anything.
Yes. I think that's almost a articulated form of don't dwell in pity. Like, keep moving. There's a song I wrote. Actually, the lyrics to it are very actually similar to this. Maybe I subconsciously had Avatar in my head when I was writing this song, but it was what are the lyrics to? There's no light at the end of the tunnel. You have to find your own light, which is not necessarily true that there is no light. But my point was kind of that if you want to keep moving forward, act of it as if there's no light. Because if you're in a tunnel, and even if there is a light at the end of the tunnel, the light at the end of the tunnel isn't going to help you while you're in your tunnel. You have to make your own light.
I think the light at the end of the tunnel might help you if you're in a dark tunnel.
Well,
because you can go towards the light. And if you can see the light and you move straight towards it, then you know that you've got a free path out. That's not nothing. Light at the end of the tunnel is very useful.
Yes, but what if you can't find the light at the end of the tunnel?
Well, then it's a moot point. Then the quote applies, right? I guess you have to feel your way along the wall.
Yeah. Or get TM Flash or something.
I don't know what that is.
That was a Pokemon reference. In the Pokemon games, if you're in a cave, one of your Pokemon can use the move Flash and it brightens the cave for you. All right, and that's all of the Iroh quotes I have. Then comment your favorite quote from Iroh at the bottom. Vote for the next episode at patreon.com/nooccasion, because I think we're going to do this again. Do you want to keep going with the You Decide episodes?
I'm good with it.
Do you have any suggestions for the votes, Robin?
Oh, what, for more topics?
For more topics.
Oh, wow. Not off the top of my head.
Right.
So the thing is, the reason yours are so cool is because they're like so out of my experience and they're pop culture references that I have no clue about whatsoever.
So that's it for this episode. Comment your favorite quote from Iroh that I missed. Vote for the next episode, and be sure to like, comment, and subscribe.
What's on your mind?
Well, I met with this guru who was supposed to help me master the Avatar state and control this great power. But to do it, I had to let go of someone I love. And I just couldn't.
Perfection and power are overrated. I think you are very wise to choose happiness and love.
What happens if we can't save everyone and beat Azula without the Avatar state? What if I'm not powerful enough?
I don't know the answer. Sometimes life is like this dark tunnel. You can't always see the light at the end of the tunnel. But if you just keep moving, you will come to a better place.